Welcome to My Life in Israel podcast, news updates from Israel, where I report brief news updates about the Israel-Gaza war and Israeli politics with added commentary so you have a better understanding of what's going on here in Israel that you won't hear from mainstream news. All right, here are today's headlines and news briefs for April 9th, 2025. Court pauses on Shin Bet, IDF holiday curfew, and terror. Okay, there's some news about East Jerusalem, and so they're listing some background into the dynamics and politics of what happens in East Jerusalem. Prior to 1967, Israel controlled approximately 1/3 of Jerusalem, and Jordan controlled 2/3. Generally, the Jordanian portion was the eastern side of the side, the Israeli portion the west. Although Israel captured the whole city in the Six-Day War, the Arab neighborhoods that were previously controlled by Jordan are referred to as East Jerusalem. Depending on the specific area, the residents have had and have the right to claim Israeli residency, giving them rights to work and live anywhere in Israel. However, the majority have not, to show they are refusing Israel. Practically, this has meant they have limited city government representation and therefore limited city services. A few East Jerusalem areas have become Jewish enclaves, but for the most part, the demographic division remains. Okay, I can talk about this a little bit. What he says is true. The residents of East Jerusalem have residency, permanent residency in Israel. They can vote in Jerusalem elections, but not in Israeli country state elections. And even though they have the opportunity to vote in city elections to have representation, they refuse for their own stupid reasons, because it goes against their interest to not have representation in the city government. And then they complain to the world that, Israel doesn't care about them, that they don't get any resources or monies, or they can't, their neighborhoods are not as nice as the rest of the neighborhoods. This is their own fault. This is their own fault, people, because they refuse to vote. And then they want to complain about everything. So this is the reality. And actually, they are also, once a year, given the opportunity to apply for Israeli citizenship. And they also refuse that as well. So this is the reality of the situation. Okay, going forward, we're talking about UNRWA. Arab report from UNRWA. IDF forces this morning issued 6 closure orders within 30 days for UNRWA schools in the Shuafat camp in East Jerusalem. From May 8th, any activity in them will be considered criminal. Yeah, they're supposed to be out. The Israeli government passed a law that forbid UNRWA from operating in Israel, and they still have not really evacuated and closed all their offices. So this is a continuing thing that we're trying to do, is to get rid of UNRWA in the entire Israeli area. Bereaved father on the Shin Bet head, Yehoshua Shani, the father of Captain Uri Shani, who fell while defending the Kisufim outpost after being expelled from the court hearing. This is yesterday. I talked about this. There was a court hearing about the head of the Shin Bet, Ronan Bar, being dismissed, and people submitted a petition to stop the dismissal of Ronan Bar. And so this father was in that courtroom yesterday, and he was expelled after he shouted out against Ronan Bar. He said, "As we expected, the court is not the place where we will receive justice. We, the bereaved families of the October 7th massacre, are more relevant to the petition against the head of the Shin Bet than any other petitioner. At least in the Knesset, we are heard. But it turns out there is one place in the country that is closed to us, and that is the court." So the people, the families of the fallen and the hostages are not a monolith. They have different views on the government. And so this is one father voicing his opinion. It's by no means the majority opinion. It's very split, but this is one of the family's opinions. IDF holiday curfew. After past attacks during holidays, the IDF announced an increase in alertness towards the holiday weekend. A curfew will be declared in all combat units training systems, and the naval and air forces. This is an exceptional move decided by the General Staff. The significance of the decision is that tens of thousands of fighters and combat support personnel will remain on bases during the holiday. The IDF Rabbinate is working very hard to ensure all soldiers have an opportunity for a Passover Seder and all food is kosher for Passover over the holiday. This is in contrast, and this is our enemies know this, and this is why this is being changed, is because without exception, on all our Jewish holy holidays, our enemies seem to exploit this and use that opportunity to attack us even more. And so we're finally getting smart and not allowing our defenses to be lessened during the holidays. And so that means our soldiers have to work and be alert and possibly fight during the holidays instead of having time off with their families and having peace. This is what we have to do to protect ourselves. On the Shin Bet court case, again, High Court issues interim order with the consent of the parties. Ronan Bar will remain in office until further notice. Netanyahu will submit an affidavit strengthening his claims of ongoing lack of confidence by April 24th after the Passover holiday week. Okay, so everything's like putting on hold until after Pesach. Basically, that's what it is. Terror, attempted stabbing. Gitti Havassar intersection in Samaria was an attempted stabbing attack. The terrorist did indeed pull the knife on the fighters and tried to stab them, and was then neutralized, according to the interrogation of commanders in the field. The terrorist was a woman. So there you go. Even there are women terrorists, and we do not discriminate about who's trying to attack us. We will neutralize anyone, whether they're a man or a woman or a child, who is trying to attack us. Terror concern. Tellstone. A suspect of a car ramming in the Jerusalem area. He was roaming on Route 1 in the area of the Tellstone interchange. Large forces of police and special forces searched the local villages, deployed their emergency security squads. Captured. So somebody was roaming around on a highway around this community, Tellstone, and was captured. So that's kind of odd. That doesn't normally happen. Iran. In responding to Trump's demand for negotiations, Iranian Foreign Minister, we do not believe in negotiations in which the other side imposes its demands through threats and pressure. We will not hold direct negotiations with the U.S., but only indirect negotiations through mediators. Well, we could say the same thing, because all we get on the other side are demands and threats. So it's your perspective. Russia. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister. Moscow will not provide military assistance to Iran if it is attacked by the United States. Well, that's good to hear. U.S. envoy to Lebanon says, U.S. envoy Morgan Ortagus speaks harshly against Hezbollah in an interview with Al Arabiya. The main points of the interview. Hezbollah must be uprooted if Lebanon wants to recover. When a person has cancer, he does not treat part of the cancer, he needs to remove it. Hezbollah is an organization that is on the terrorist list and that its hands are stained with the blood of Americans. Morgan noted that part of the disaster that is befalling the Lebanese today is because of Hezbollah and Iran. So yeah, this is the main thing in Lebanon, is the government of Lebanon is not doing really anything to control or get rid of Hezbollah. They're like allowing Hezbollah to basically do whatever they want. And then they're crying at Israel for staying in Lebanon. So this is what's going on. U.S. versus the Houthis. U.S. attacks continue. Yemeni media. U.S. Air Force strikes in the Shwaba area, Dibin district. Amran government. It doesn't have anything else specific. Just the U.S. keeps attacking Yemen. And then Yemen keeps shooting ballistic missiles at Israel, which we keep intercepting. So that's what's happening with the Houthis. Okay, more news. Golani Brigade returns to Gaza to dismantle remaining terrorist infrastructure. IDF chief orders defeat of Hamas's Rafah Brigade and securing victory in Gaza. After months of operating on the northern front, Golani Brigade troops, under the command of the IDF's 36th Division, have resumed operations in the Gaza Strip. Over the past week, they have been active in the Rafah area, focusing on dismantling terrorist infrastructure. This includes targeting buildings used by terrorists and taking down observation and firing positions. During the mission, troops have located weapons and eliminated multiple terrorists. The Chief of Staff. I expect you to defeat Hamas's Rafah Brigade and achieve victory. The Chief of the General Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, conducted a field tour and situational assessment today in the Gaza Strip, focusing on the Morag Corridor and key combat zones of the Golani and 188th Brigades. He was joined by Southern Command Chief Major General Yaniv Assor, 36th Division Commander Brigadier General Moran Omer, and other senior commanders. Zamir met with IDF soldiers of the 36th Division who have resumed operations in an area of Gaza where IDF forces are now operating for the first time. He approved plans for continued operations and praised the troops for their successful surprise offensive, which resulted in the elimination of dozens of terrorists and discovery of large weapon caches. "You are applying significant pressure," Zamir said. "I expect you to bring about the defeat of Hamas's Rafah brigade and to achieve victory wherever you operate." Zamir also emphasized the broader goal as Passover approaches, the return of all our hostages, the achievement of victory, and the dismantling of Hamas. He commended the ongoing efforts and achievements of the 36th Division and Southern Command, noting their extended operational deployment and combat successes both in the Gaza Strip and along Israel's northern border. Okay, going on to Prime Minister Netanyahu warned, Turkey wants to establish military bases in Syria, and this poses a danger to Israel. We oppose it and are acting against it. Israel views the Turkish military expansion into Syria as a direct threat to regional stability and its national security, prompting proactive diplomatic and strategic responses. Yeah, so instead of Syria being aligned with Hezbollah and Assad's regime, now that Assad's regime has fallen and this new regime is forming in Syria, now this new regime in Syria is forming alliances with Turkey, and it's still a threat to Israel. So that's why Israel is still operating in Syria. And so let's go back and look at this video. This is in Rafah, Gaza, I believe. Activity of the Golani Brigade in the Rafah area. Okay, so on to more news. Hezbollah smuggling weapons via sea routes under IRGC supervision into Lebanon through Beirut port. IDF spokesperson. A short while ago, the IAF struck a weapons storage facility belonging to Hezbollah's aerial defense unit in the area of Bekaa in Lebanon. The presence of weapons in the area poses a threat to the state of Israel and constitutes a blatant violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. Saudi outlet Al-Hadath, known for receiving intelligence leaks from Israeli sources, has reported a significant development in Hezbollah's weapons smuggling operations. Citing a Western security source, the report claims that Hezbollah has resumed smuggling weapons into Lebanon via maritime routes, with a primary focus on the port of Beirut. This marks a tactical shift from previous methods that included land and air corridors, suggesting Hezbollah is adapting to evade heightened Israeli surveillance. Israeli intelligence had long anticipated this move, and it appears maritime smuggling has now become Hezbollah's preferred route. The smuggling operations are reportedly being coordinated by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' Quds Force, specifically by commanders of Units 190 and 700. These units are notorious for managing covert weapons transfers and logistics for Iran's regional proxies. According to the report, these commanders are either directly overseeing the shipments into Lebanon or routing them through third-party countries to conceal the origin and destination. The leak to Al-Hadath is seen by many analysts as an intentional signal from the Israeli security establishment, which frequently uses the Saudi channel to communicate covert warnings or deterrence messages. As per Israeli Army radio, the message is clear: we know about you. This public exposure serves a dual purpose: to warn Hezbollah and Iran that their operations are being tracked, and to prepare the regional and international community for potential Israeli counteractions if the smuggling escalates or poses immediate threats. In addition to the report, there are circulating accounts of Israeli warplanes flying over Beirut, which may be linked to intelligence-gathering missions or as a further demonstrative warning to Hezbollah and its backers. Israel has repeatedly stated it will not allow advanced weapons to reach Hezbollah's hands, viewing it as a red line. The renewed maritime smuggling, especially through civilian infrastructure like Beirut's port, poses serious challenges to regional stability and increases the likelihood of further Israeli action to disrupt these supply lines. So there you have it. Okay. Trump, Iran to hold indirect talks in Oman as Israel signals military strike if no deal is reached. Tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East as Iran publicly rejected President Trump's recent assertion that Tehran had agreed to direct negotiations with the United States. In a firm statement, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi clarified Iran and the U.S. will meet in Oman on Saturday for indirect high-level talks. The planned discussions come at a critical juncture with growing concern over the possibility of regional conflict. Araghchi issued a stark warning to Washington. It is unlikely that Trump would want to repeat the fate of previous U.S. presidents by getting involved in a catastrophic war in the Middle East, a war that would quickly engulf the region and incur costs beyond those of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Israel, however, is growing increasingly impatient with what it sees as dangerous delays in containing Iran's nuclear ambitions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a clear message: if there is no agreement with Iran, we will go for the military option. This statement underscores Israel's willingness to act unilaterally to defend itself and prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear capabilities. Meanwhile, Russia has weighed in on the growing crisis. Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Rudenko warned that any U.S. attack on Iran could unleash catastrophic consequences for the entire region. He emphasized that while Moscow is not bound to provide direct military support to Iran, it will act diplomatically and strategically to try to stabilize the situation. If such an attack occurs, Moscow will not be obligated to provide military assistance to Tehran, but will take all necessary measures to help resolve the conflict. The stage is now set for a potentially high-stakes diplomatic moment in Oman, as global powers watch closely to see if these indirect talks can diffuse the rising threat of war in the region. So I don't have any commentary for this. I don't know what's going to happen. I know Israel has been wanting to attack Iran directly, more than they have, and they've been waiting for Trump to get in office to have Trump give Israel the go-ahead to do it, and I think they're frustrated that they haven't been able to do anything yet. So I think that's what's going on. A senior Hezbollah official told Reuters that the group is willing to engage in discussions with Lebanese President Joseph Aoun about its weapons if Israel withdraws from southern Lebanon and ceases its airstrikes. While this statement suggests a potential opening for dialogue, it is expected that this will be denied or contradicted, as is typically the case. Okay, this is weird because all of a sudden we just talked about Hezbollah smuggling more weapons into Lebanon, but then at the same time they're showing willingness to disarm, but only if Israel withdraws out of Lebanon, which we've done before, and Hezbollah didn't stop disarming. So you can take that with a grain of salt. We need to see Hezbollah disarming first before Israel will withdraw from Lebanon. That is what needs to happen. All right, last item here. PM says aid and internal politics, more internal politics. We have organized crime here in Israel, and this is talking about a raid of some organized crime people. From a police spokesman, Monday, an extensive enforcement operation took place in the city of Nazareth, which is an Israeli Arab city, intended to cut off the economic oxygen supply to the crime families and restore governance to the area. All enforcement agencies in the country, including the Israel Police, the Tax Authority, the Register of Companies, the Enforcement Service, and other agencies were involved in a raid and inspection. This happens every now and again. There is organized crime here in Israel, and Israel sometimes is able to do some sweeps and arrest some people, and looks like this is what they're able to do in Nazareth. PM on the Shin Bet court ruling. The judges of the High Court panel reiterated several times during the hearing that the government's authority to remove the head of the Shin Bet from office is undisputed. So they're admitting, the court is admitting that the prime minister has the authority to dismiss the head of the Shin Bet, and yet the High Court is allowing the petition to be heard. Like this is what the idiocy and the Justice Department, justice system in this state is ridiculous. If the prime minister has the authority to remove the head of the Shin Bet, why is even this being heard in the court? This is ridiculous. Therefore, the High Court's decision to postpone by 10 days the end of the term of office of the head of the Shin Bet is puzzling. But the High Court decided by itself to delay the end of the term of the head of the Shin Bet when I don't even know how they can do that. This is ridiculous. Most of the judge's comments dealt with procedure, but just 9 months ago, when the Minister of Public Safety requested the transfer of the commissioner before the end of his term, the Attorney General did not raise the need. I don't even understand what's going on. It is unthinkable that the government would be prevented from removing a failed Shin Bet chief simply because he opened an investigation that is not related to any of the government ministers. Yeah, this is ridiculous. This goes about what I said yesterday about this is the deep state at work, doing things that they really have no business or authority doing. Okay, this Shas chairman, Ari Deri. Shas is a party, a religious party here in Israel. I told Shin Bet chief, Ronan Bar, even if you mean well, you are creating a precedent. Someone else will come after you who won't mean so well, and then what will happen? Someone from the Shin Bet will threaten the prime minister. So yeah, it's like putting a precedent that is putting the head of the Shin Bet power above the political legislative government when it should be the other way around. IDF chief disbands. A reserve combat unit that spray-painted Jewish Star of David graffiti on top of Palestinian graffiti calling for armed action against Israel because applying graffiti is not in the spirit of the IDF. See, this is ridiculous. Again, we can't cover over Palestinian graffiti with a Jewish Star of David because that goes against the spirit of the IDF. So we're just supposed to allow Palestinian graffiti calling for our destruction to stay. It's, again, ridiculous. The things that happen here in Israel just amaze me. Okay, but then we have something else. IDF dress code adjustments. Previously, only religiously observant Jewish soldiers were able to get a permit to grow a beard. Under the new changes, all troops can have a beard, provided it is neat and meets the guidelines. Yeah, I don't know about these guidelines, these IDF guidelines, but apparently you were not supposed to have a beard. And now they're allowing it for somehow. I don't know what that means. Female soldiers will be allowed to wear almost any color of nail polish. Previously, nail polish was limited to a handful of colors. Again, I don't even really know what relevance this is. Soldiers will be allowed to go home while wearing their tactical uniform. Previously, when troops left their base for furlough, they had to wear dress uniforms. Expected to be approved today. Okay. Internal politics. Haredi draft. Shas threatens. Okay, again, this is a religious party, political party here in Israel that's against the draft. Shas chairman Ari Deri, in an interview with the newspaper Haaretz, I have set a red line for everyone. By the beginning of the summer session of the Knesset, we must reach an internal agreement on all the core issues. A single incident occurs in which the military police enter a yeshiva or a house and arrest even one yeshiva student. Shas will not be able to remain in the government. To open crisis now over secondary non-war issues would be irresponsible. Okay, this is an ongoing conflict in the current coalition. The Shas is part of the current coalition with Likud and Netanyahu, and they have they're against allowing their yeshiva students to be drafted into the IDF, and this is too much to go into right now. But they're still creating a problem for the current government, threatening to dismantle the government if they don't get their way, which would allow for new elections, which would probably be devastating for the country. So I don't know why they keep doing this. Okay, moving on about aid. Coordinator of operations in the territories to UNRWA's operations department in Gaza. Prepare to receive aid trucks from next Monday at 7 o'clock a.m. What? The IDF updates that the announcement distributed to organizations in Gaza about the opening of the crossings originated in error. The hours are for the movement of humanitarian teams only. Okay, so only people, not humanitarian aid. There is no aid going into Gaza. After flooding Gaza with free food and supplies, the majority stolen by Hamas, there are those who keep pushing to do it again. Because while Gaza civilians have been holding hostages, we should feed them, while our hostages starve. And even if this is for humanitarian teams, why are we allowing foreign assistance while Gaza civilians are holding hostages? This is the commentary from this Israel Real Time, which I have to agree with. It makes no sense. I don't care about the Gaza civilians, honestly. Yeah. Lebanon, another targeted IDF airstrike or drone strike, this time in El Kosh. Senior Hezbollah official makes dramatic statement, ready to discuss disarmament if Israel withdraws from Lebanon. Hezbollah is ready to discuss its weapons if Israel withdraws. Strangely, backwards statement, it should be Hezbollah ready to disarm to bring Israel withdrawal, which I just spoke about earlier. All right, Gaza tunnels. A year and a half into the war, security sources say that the IDF has only managed to destroy about a quarter of Hamas's tunnels in Gaza. Wow, that's hard to believe. It's unclear if this is due to the difficulty of destroying deep tunnels, the risk to civilians of the heavy bombing that would be necessary, or concerns that such actions would likely result in the deaths of some hostages. Yeah, I'm surprised. As much as they've shown videos and videos and videos of destroying tunnels, and I'm surprised that there's only 25% destroyed. It's very frustrating. Indonesia says they will accept Gazans leaving the Strip, 1,000 as a first step. Yay! Somebody's willing to take them. There are Gazans who want to leave. For people that think that's a bad idea, or think there are people in Gaza that will not leave, that said that they will stay and they won't leave. But there are Gazans who are willing to leave, and so we will do whatever we need to do to help them leave. So there's proof of your genocide, people. We're helping them leave to not be killed. So say genocide all day long, but it's not happening. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Stay tuned, and we'll keep updating you on the latest news from Israel. Thanks for listening to My Life in Israel podcast. Follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for non-podcast videos. If you enjoyed the podcast, like, share, comment, and follow me on Spotify and other podcast apps so you never miss another episode. Support my work and support Israel by making a one-time or monthly donation, or become a subscriber to get access to exclusive content. The links are in my profile and description. And stay tuned because I have a lot more to say. Am Israel High.